Good morning, class 9 students. I welcome you all on this digital learning platform provided by Jagriti Classes. Today we are going to study our last topics of our unit 3, that is atoms and molecules. So the first topic which we are going to start with today's class is how to write a chemical formula, that is writing chemical formulas. So this will be the topic of our discussion. How to write a chemical formula. Now before starting the steps on how to proceed to write a formula of a given chemical compound, what we need to know is what do you understand by the term chemical formula? What do you understand by this term? Okay, so chemical formula is just the chemical representation which tells us the composition of the compound. Chemical formula can be defined as the symbolic representation. It is the symbolic representation which tells about the chemical composition. Because in this chemical formula we use two things. We use the symbols, okay, to denote our species. We use their symbols. We do not write the whole name. We just denote the chemical components by the symbols. And next what we do is we put some numbers which indicate the quantity or the composition of the compound. So this is what the definition of chemical formula means. Chemical formula is the symbolic representation which tells us about the chemical composition of the compound. That is, in a compound, how many elements are joined or mixed together to give the particular compound. We also saw in the starting of the chapter 2 laws, that is law of constant proportions. Okay, so in that also we studied that if two elements combine together in a particular or a fixed ratio, then they give rise to a particular compound. For example, let's say to form water, what is the perfect ratio or perfect combination? We know that when two atoms of hydrogen will combine with one atom of oxygen, then we would get H2O, that is water. If I combine here two atoms of hydrogen with two atoms of oxygen, then the compound formed would not be water. So to form a definite compound, we need to have the fixed ratio of all the atoms which are combining together. So the chemical formula represents the composition of the compound. Composition ka matlab how many, the number of atoms which are joined or linked together to form the compound. This is represented by the term chemical formula. Now we'll see what are the two things that we require to form a formula. So the requirements to form a chemical formula, that is, you need to have an idea about two things. The first requirement is you need to know the symbols of the elements or atoms which are included in your given formula. And the second thing, you need to know about the valency. Okay, the charges. We already discussed valency in the last lecture. What do you mean by valency? It was the combining capacity. So the requirements of chemical formula are only two. That is, you need to know the symbols, and the next thing is you need to know the valency. If you know the symbols and the valency of the elements or atoms, then you can simply make their chemical formula. Let's see how we underdo the process of making a formula. So for a simple example, let's take, we are given to write the formula of hydrogen chloride. We want to write the formula of hydrogen chloride. I told you just now that to write the formula of a given compound, you need to have what? You need to know the symbols of the atoms, and then you should know their valency. For knowing the symbols and valency, a table, that is table 3.6, is given in your books. Okay, I'll discuss in brief that table. There you have given the name of the components or the name of the elements, and then you have what? You have its symbols and their valencies. This is the table 3.6 of the book which we are discussing now. In it, the name of the element, their symbols and valencies are given. You have to learn that table, okay? If you once learn this table, then you would be very easily, you can make the formula of any compound given. So let's suppose the name would be hydrogen. The symbol of hydrogen is capital H, okay? Then we have, let's say, calcium. The symbol of calcium is capital C and small a. We have already discussed in the nomenclature of compound how to give a name to the compound. The first letter is written capital and the next letter is written in small. So, other metals commonly included in the table are zinc. You will have magnesium here. Then you will see aluminium and such metals. Many more metals are included in this table. So their symbols and valencies I am writing, and you just need to learn their symbols. Without learning these symbols, you will not be able to form the formula. Okay? So these are the symbols or the valencies of the different metal ions. Now talking about some anions also which are given in the table. What do you have? You have an anion like sulfate. There are three common anions which we'll discuss and which are really confusing, okay? Where mistake is made generally. It is sulfate, sulfite, and then you have what is called a sulfide. These three are much similar when you talk about the name, okay? Then the rest similar are nitrite and nitrate. So better learn these with care. Now you have to learn the formulas of these ions or these anions. So for sulfate, it is given in your books in the table 3.6. It is SO4 2-. This means that the symbol of sulfate is SO4 and the charge on sulfate is -2. Then you have sulfide. Sulfite is SO4, SO3 2-. And then you have what is called sulfide. It is S2-. Better learn these with proper care, okay? These are very important. So now, if you have to make a formula, let's discuss a formula like aluminium chloride. If you are asked in exam to make a formula about aluminium chloride, how would you do it? Once you learn the table, you will get that the symbols of two elements which are included in our compound are aluminium. Al stands for aluminium and capital C, small l stands for chloride. So these are the symbols of aluminium and chloride. Now what to do next? Next you have to write their valencies or charges. We have just recently discussed, okay? The valency of aluminium is +3 and the valency of chloride is -1. Remember that any species having a negative charge on them, that is any anionic species. For example, I am discussing how these charge comes on these anionic species. So what we have is, we have a chlorine atom here. If you consider chlorine, the electronic configuration of chlorine is 2, 8 and 7. That is the number of electrons present in different shells is 2 electrons in the K shell. Okay, any atom can be represented as a sphere. In the center of the atom you have a nucleus which is situated in the center of the atom, and then you have different shells around this nucleus. And these shells are named as, the innermost shell is called a K shell. Then while moving outwards from the inside, you have L shell, then you have your M shell, and the last is your N shell. These are the last or the shells in which the electrons revolve. This is basically a structure of atom. Okay, this is the nucleus of the atom. This is the nucleus of the atom, and in this nucleus what we have we have protons and neutrons. Here, protons and neutrons are present inside the nucleus of the atom. And these electrons, okay, the atomic number of chlorine is 17. So these 17 electrons are arranged in different shells, K, L, M, N shells. In the K shell, remember that the maximum electron which can occupy K shell are 2 electron. The next third electron will move into the next shell, that is L shell. The maximum number of electrons which can come in L shell is 8, and similar is the case with M and N shell. So just remember that maximum number of electrons, these numbers I am showing about electrons. We know that this is a structure of atom. In this structure of atom, we have a center positioned nucleus, and then we have concentric shells around the nucleus. In the nucleus, what is present? Protons and neutrons are present, while the electrons revolve in these shells. So I am saying that in the K shell, how many electrons can come? Only 2 electrons. So in the K shell, we have 2 electrons. If we are discussing the case of chlorine, then what do we have? In the K, out of the total 17 electrons, 17 denotes the atomic number, and it means the number of electrons and number of protons. The atomic number shows you, this atomic number means the number of electrons, or you can say the number of protons. Okay, so atomic number is the number of electrons or protons present in a given chemical species. So here you have chlorine. The atomic number of chlorine is 17. These electrons, 17 atomic number means how many electrons? 17 electrons, because we have just said that atomic number is equal to number of electrons. So we have to arrange these 17 electrons in the different shell. So from 17, the first 2 electrons will come in the K shell. I am writing in the K shell I have drawn 2 electrons, okay? Then the next 8 electrons will come in the L shell. So let's make 8 electrons in the L shell. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. We made our 8 electrons in the L shell. Now the total number of electrons are 2 in the K shell, 8 in the L shell, which gives 2 plus 8 is 10. Now, but we had a total of 17. So, after arranging 10 electrons, we now have our 7 electrons still left. So, these 7 electrons will come in which shell? Yes, the next unoccupied shell, that is your M shell. So, the remaining 7 electrons will be arranged in your M shell. This is 5, 6 and 7. And you know a rule which is called octet rule. What does this octet rule states? This rule states that for attaining stability or to gain stability, the number of electrons in the valence shell should be 8. Okay, that is the valence shell should be completely occupied. It states that number of electrons present in outermost shell should be 8. And so here comes the name octet. Octet means when all the 8 electrons are completely filled, that is your last shell is completely filled. No other electrons can enter in the shell. Then this means according to octet rule, the given atom is stable. But we know here, discussing chlorine, we have only 7 electrons in the last shell. And according to octet rule, in the last shell, how many electrons should be present? 8. So this chlorine is not stable. Now to attain stability, it has 2 possible ways. One way is, what I have to do, our aim is to make 8 electrons in the last shell, in the outermost shell. What we can do is, we have 2 ways to attain this stability. One way is the simple, that is if I add 1 electron to this chlorine, then 7 plus 1 would become 8, and according to octet rule, it would be stable. So, if I am adding 1 electron plus 1 electron, then this 1 electron will add up to these 7 electrons, and the total which we'll get is 8. So this is the one possible way which seems quite easy. The next possible way is, if I remove all these 7 electrons, then what would I have? The configuration would be 2 and 8. and the outermost shell would have 8 electrons, and according to octet rule it would be stable. So either I can add 1 electron or I can remove these 7 electrons. Both possibilities are available for this chlorine atom to attain stability according to octet rule. But the chlorine atom favors which path? Of gaining 1 electron. Because these gaining of electrons and losing of electrons require very high amount of energy. Remember that. And if you want to lose 7 electrons, then you would require extremely high amount of energy, and that would also disturb the proton-electron ratio. So it is not easy or not favorable that we remove the 7 electrons. The less energy pathway is what? You add 1 electron to the chlorine to get to 8-8 configuration. So for attaining stability, chlorine also does the same thing, that is, it takes up 1 electron. So now what we have is this chlorine, which was 287, it adds up 1 electron and becomes Cl minus. And now the electronic configuration is 2, 8, 8. And according to octet rule, in the last shell, in the outermost shell, this outermost shell is called valence shell. Valence shell means the outermost occupied shell of the atom. In this atom, we have 3 occupied shells, K, L, M shell. And the outermost shell which is occupied is your M shell. So here M shell would be the valence shell. And the electrons present in the valence shell are called valence electrons. Yes, and these 8 electrons will be called what? Valence electron. Valence electron means the electrons which are present in your valence shell. Okay, and valence shell is what? Valence shell is your outermost occupied shell. Outermost shell is called valence shell, and the electrons present in valence shell are called valence electrons. So now this chlorine, on gaining 1 electron, according to octet rule, it becomes stable because it has a configuration of 2, 8 and 8, and the 8 electrons present in valence shell provide stability to it. Now if this atom gains 1 electron, because it has taken up 1 electron, so we write -1 on the side of chlorine, okay, on the top of this chlorine atom. So now this chlorine atom, because it has taken an electron, you know electron is negatively charged. If you take negatively charged species onto you, you would get a minus charge or a negative charge. Similar is the case with chlorine. Chlorine has gained an electron, okay, this is gain of 1 electron. And you know electrons are negatively charged. Electrons carry a negative charge on them. So if this chlorine gains a negatively charged species, it becomes negative itself. And this 1, 2, the numbers written denotes how many electrons it has taken. Now this chlorine has gained 1 electron, so I am writing -1. You have seen certain compounds like sodium, okay, which is Na. Then you have what? Magnesium, and then you have oxygen in oxide form. This is oxygen. Let's see how do these get the charges. So sodium, the atomic number is 11. It means this is the atomic number of sodium. Okay, I've already discussed the elements coming from 1 to 20 atomic number. Do see that video and learn the table. Also learn their masses, which I told you. So now we have the sodium atom which has atomic number 11. This atomic number 11 means number of electrons will also be 11. And when you arrange these 11 electrons in the different shells, how would you do that? In the K shell, you would put 2 electrons. Then in the L shell, a maximum number of electrons which occupy are 8. 8 plus 2 gives 10 electrons. We still have 1 electron left. And this 1 electron will go in your M shell. So here the valence shell would be what? M shell will be your valence shell. If a question is asked, how many valence electrons are present in sodium atom? Valence electron means the electrons, number of electrons present in the outermost shell. So here valence electron are what? 1. So we have one valence electron in the sodium atom which is present in the M shell, and this M shell is your valence shell. Okay, quite simple. Then what do we have? We know that according to octet rule, the outermost valence shell should contain 8 electrons. But here we have only 1 electrons. How to make this 8? The best possible is if I remove this electron, then the configuration what would I get is 2, 8. And according to octet rule, this would be stable. So I have to remove 1 electron. Okay? So this sodium works in a particular manner to remove this electron. And as I told you earlier, electrons are negatively charged. When this sodium removes 1 electron, it is removing negative charge from itself. Then it attains a positive charge. And how much electron it has removed? It has removed 1 electron. It has lost a single electron. So the number here would be Na plus 1. Okay? When there is a loss or gain of only 1 electron, then you can also write Na plus. Okay? As we wrote Cl minus. There is no need to specify 1. Because we already know that 1 minus sign means only 1 electron is lost or 1 electron is gained. So this is the configuration of sodium cation, Na plus. Let's see the case for magnesium. The atomic number of magnesium is 12. Its number of electrons would also be 12 in magnesium. Now the electronic configuration would be 2, 8 and 2. The electronic configuration would be 2, 8 and 2 because 2 plus 8 plus 2 gives you a total of 11 electrons. Now what you have is, in the valence shell you have 2 electrons. Okay, so what magnesium can do? Magnesium can take 6 electrons because 6 plus 2 will become 8, or this magnesium can lose these 2 electrons. After losing these 2 electrons, the configuration would be 2, 8 and it would be stable. Which work is easier? Gaining 6 electrons or losing 2 electrons? Correct. Losing 2 electrons is energetically favorable. It is easier. So what magnesium does is, magnesium loses these 2 electrons and the configuration we get is 2, 8. Okay, these are lost or left. Now magnesium would attain a plus or a minus sign. Here in this case, magnesium has lost 2 electrons. It has lost 2 electrons. I already discussed that when a species loses 2 electrons, it attains a positive charge. Correct. So magnesium on losing electrons will get a positive charge. And how many number of electrons magnesium lost? Magnesium lost 2 electrons. So it would get a plus 2 charge. Similar is the case with oxide. You know atomic number of oxygen is 8. Okay. The configuration would be 2, 6. To attain stability, it will take 2 electrons. Oxygen takes 2 electrons to gain stability. When it takes 2 electrons, then it becomes 2, 8. So because oxygen takes electron, the symbol of oxygen is capital O. Because it is gaining 2 electrons, electrons are negatively charged. It is gaining the negative charge. So which charge will come? A negative charge will come, and the number of electrons gained, that is 2, will be written over the negative charge, that is O2 minus. And this is what oxide form. Okay, so these are the general forms of these ions. Now we have a term here, that is, what do you mean by polyatomic ions? This is the term that what do you understand by polyatomic ions. We saw ions means anything which carries a charge over it, either plus charge or a minus charge, is called ion. These ions may be positively charged or negatively charged. Positively charged ions are called cations and the negatively charged ions are called anions. I already discussed a trick in the previous lecture video to remember the positively charged ions are cations and the negative are anions. Okay, so do watch it if you missed it. Now we have what is known as polyatomic ion. Abhi the ions we saw were, let's suppose we saw zinc, then we had aluminium, Then we saw oxide. So these ions only had one single atom. That is, here in the iron we have only zinc atom. This ion contains only the aluminium atom. The next also contains only a single type of atom, that is a oxide atom. But when more than one atom is present in the ion, such ions are called polyatomic. Poly means many. Atomic stands for the term atoms. In a single ion, when you have many atoms involved, such ions are called polyatomic ions. So polyatomic ions are when more than one kind of atom, is present in a single ion, then we call it as a polyatomic ion. So what we have is an example for polyatomic ions. The first is hydroxide. In the same table given in your books, that is in the table 3.6, the last column, in the last column polyatomic ions are mentioned. So do learn that also with proper care. So the first polyatomic ion, the example is hydroxide. The symbol for hydroxide is OH negative. See here, in a single ion you have two atoms. You have one oxygen atom and the other hydrogen atom. So when two atoms or more than one atom is present in an ion is anything which contains a charge. So this OH minus is a kind of polyatomic ions because in a single ion two atoms are present, oxygen and hydrogen, and its charge is -1. Then you have phosphate. I am just discussing some examples and you have to learn the whole table. Phosphate is PO4 and the charge is -3. Okay, we write PO4 3 minus. So what do we have? How phosphate is a polyatomic ion? Because it is a single ion which contains phosphorus and oxygen atoms. Both the phosphorus and oxygen atoms are grouped together, linked together in a single ion. So it is called polyatomic ion. Then you have carbonate. Carbonate is CO3 and the charge is -2. So this is what carbonate means. Then you can write bicarbonate. Bicarbonate is HCO3 and the charge is -1. So these are some of the polyatomic ions, okay? Now we'll see how to write the formula. For example, if you are given, write the formula of aluminium oxide. You have to write the formula of aluminium oxide. First you have to write their symbols, then you have to write their valency or charges, then you cross multiply both the things and you get a formula. Let's see how we do that. For aluminium, the symbol we have is Al. For oxide, just recently discussed, O2 minus. So the symbol is capital O. The charge or valency of aluminium is +3 and the charge on oxide is -2. After writing the symbols and the valencies, what you have to do, you cross multiply these charges, okay? So this 2 goes to aluminium and 3 goes to oxygen. Remember, while writing the formula, you do not have to include these plus and minus signs. Only the number or the coefficients will multiply. So Al becomes 2 and O becomes 3. So the formula is Al2O3. Never write the formula like you cannot write oxygen first. You cannot write O3Al2. This would be incorrect. Why? Because in the name you have first aluminium. So you have to write first the symbol of aluminium and its valency. Then you have another component as oxide. So the oxide should be written as the second component. First always write the symbol of the component which is written first in the name. So we have aluminium oxide. We do not have oxide aluminium. So this formula is totally incorrect. This is the correct formula or the correct representation of aluminium oxide. Okay, let's see one more examples. This formula, writing formula topic, you have to practice many examples. Do all the examples which are given, which are solved in your books. Then you attempt all the in-text questions, that is the blue questions. And then many questions are given at the back of the chapter named exercises. So do attempt all the questions, and if you face any difficulty, then you may ask. So the next what we are doing is calcium chloride. What would be the formula of calcium chloride? So what two things we require to write a formula? Yes, the first one is the symbol and the next is their valency. So what would be the symbol of calcium chloride? The symbol of calcium will be Ca. Okay, symbol for calcium is Ca and the symbol for chloride is Cl. Remember that when the suffix IDE, ide is joined, then it is always a negatively charged ion. Okay, so this chloride, because the name of the atom is chlorine, but chlorine, when it takes up one electron, it becomes Cl minus 1, and this Cl negative charge is called chloride. Similarly, we have fluoride, bromide, iodide. Okay, so the suffix present IDE in the name symbolize it is an anion. Anion means it is a negatively charged species. So now after writing the symbols, what do we do next? Yes, we write their valencies. So Ca is plus 2 and Cl is minus 1. Now the most simplest work, that is cross multiplying these valencies or charges with the atoms. We get 1 comes with Ca and 2 comes with Cl. I am again repeating, never include these charges in your formula. Okay? We can't write Ca minus 1 and Cl plus 2. We are not writing these charges in our formula. So what would be the formula of the compound? First symbol would be Ca. Then you have 1 here, and we do not have to write 1. No need to write 1. Okay? I am just writing to explain you. Ca is 1 and Cl is 2. We will not write plus 2. It will be only 2. So Ca1 and Cl would be 2. And I said Ca1 means there is already one atom of calcium which is denoted by the symbol Ca. So no need to write 1. This would become CaCl2. So this would be the final formula of calcium chloride. You see, in calcium chloride we have 1 atom of calcium and 2 atoms of chlorine. So this is the formula of calcium chloride. Now let's discuss the formula of some polyatomic ions. Okay, formulas involving some polyatomic ions. So these would be aluminium phosphate, and then the one which I would discuss would be any polyatomic ion you can take, that is zinc with carbonate, zinc carbonate. Now first you have to write the symbols. The symbol of aluminium would be Al. These symbols and valencies we are doing from the table given in your books. You have to learn it. The symbol of phosphate is PO4. Just in the previous slide I told you, okay, the symbol of phosphate when we were discussing the polyatomic ions. The symbol of phosphate was PO4 and the charge is minus 3. So now we have to write the symbol of phosphate PO4. Charge on phosphate is minus 3. The charge on aluminium or the valency is plus 3. You see that 3 goes here and this 3 goes here. But when you have equal number of the charges with opposite sign, plus 3 and minus 3, then you know plus minus is minus and 3 minus 3 gives 0. So we'll, after cross multiplying, the equal number of charges are sent to both the atoms. So what would be the formula? Okay, if you can write, what would be the formula? Al3 and PO4 3. It would be Al3 and this PO4 3. But because we have the same number, that is aluminium and phosphate, to give aluminium phosphate are combining in the ratio 3:3. So this ratio can be simplified, and this ratio is equal to 3/3 is equal to what? 1/1. So there is no need to include these as the subscript. So the formula would be what? It would be AlPO4. This would be the formula of aluminium phosphate. Now discussing the formula of zinc carbonate. The symbol of zinc is Zn. The symbol of carbonate, you can see the previous slide, it is CO3. Charge is +2 and here comes -2. So if you cross multiply, +2 and -2 are completely balanced, you get zinc carbonate. Okay? But let's suppose if in any formula you got your A atom and the B atom, and this is, let's suppose, a polyatomic atom. Let's take an example of this, okay? Then what you have is, you have a polyatomic atom which is calcium hydroxide. Calcium hydroxide. The symbol of calcium is Ca. The symbol of hydroxide is OH. And their charges are +2 and OH has a -1, -1 charge. And this -1 charge, if you cross multiply both these charges, Ca would be 1. So there is no need to write Ca, write the symbol 1. We do not include 1 or plus minus in the formula. Then you have OH. Now you have to write the subscript 2. So you can't write 2 like this, because it would mean that this hydrogen is 2 and oxygen is 1. But these, when you are writing the formula of polyatomic ions, what you do is, you write the first symbol. This would be wrong, okay? You can't put 2 after oxygen. This would be also wrong. So always remember, when writing the formula including polyatomic ions, Ca is 1. Then you have the polyatomic ion. So enclose this polyatomic ion in a bracket, and any number which you want to write as the subscript, it comes outside the bracket. So always remember to include the polyatomic ions in your brackets. This would make the formula correct. So what we have, the formula of calcium hydroxide. For calcium we have Ca, hydroxide means OH. On writing their charges, then you cross multiply the charges, you get Ca1 and OH twice. The number written at the polyatomic ion subscript, it is called as twice. So this is called calcium hydroxide, which can be spelled as CaOH twice. If you had aluminium hydroxide, the symbol of aluminium would be Al, the symbol of hydroxide OH, the charges are +3 and -1. So the formula which you will get is Al would be 1. So no need to write 1. And OH, before writing any number in any polyatomic ion, what we have to do? We have to close the polyatomic ion into our brackets. And after writing or enclosing the polyatomic ion into the brackets, you write the coefficients, that is OH3. So this is the formula of aluminium hydroxide. Always remember to put your polyatomic ions in bracket if you have to multiply any number. If there is one only, like here if you had +1, then you could write A and no need to put your brackets. You could write A, then OH. But if you have to write any number with polyatomic ion, you have to enclose them in brackets. So this was the concept of writing chemical formula. What do you understand by the term chemical formula? Then the rules to write the different chemical formulas. Remember to learn the symbols and valencies which we have discussed, okay? And then do practice all the questions given in your books. That would be much enough, and I think your concept would be well clear. Thank you. In the next class, we'll discuss our last topic of this chapter, that is mole concept. It is a very important, very interesting topic. And after reading it, okay, after I'll explain, it would be very easy for you to solve every kind of numericals or the problems which are based on mole concept. Till then, you practice all your concepts and be safe. Thank you.